Close the door. Good evening and welcome to Green Watch Live. I am your host, Treasure Mitchell, and joining us we have Jonathan Mack of Anubis and
Sundiata Shango.
Baba Sunjata
Shango.
Shango
Yes, ma'am.
of Say Hi Youth and Fitness.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys, and welcome to Green Watch.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You're very welcome. So if you can start off by just introducing yourselves again, telling us a little bit about yourselves.
Yes. Baba Sundiata Shango. I am the executive director of Say Hi Youth and Fitness, as well as the head technician for our martial arts class, self-defense classes. We run a homeschool co-op, after-school enrichment, and cater our services to the youth and the community abroad.
Awesome. Great to hear that. And you?
I am Jonathan Mack. I'm here representing Anubis. I'm not an active member, but I am representing them. And, well, I'm just, representing the common man that believes in standing up for his community.
Awesome, awesome. So this evening, our topic is community self-defense. These are both activists, very strong in the community about promoting self-defense. And you work at Say Hi Youth and Fitness. Can you tell us about that organization, as well as your part in that organization?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so Say Hi Youth and Fitness Center was established in 1992 by my mother and father, Salida Marquette Wells and Mwalimu Baba Shango. Basically, and both of them, give you a little tidbit of history, they started off at the Shape Center together, and from there they branched off, created Say Hi. And basically, the mission of Say Hi Youth and Fitness Center is to bring health to the community through awareness, spirituality, and physical ability. Health, period. We're about health. My father ran the self-defense and the martial arts pieces, and my mother gave the psychiatric component to it, if you will. Mental health, because we can't be just physically strong, we have to be spiritually strong and mentally healthy as well.
Yes, sir.
My role now is, like I said, the executive director and the head technician or martial arts instructor, if you will, for the community and for the center.
Awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
Great to hear. Jonathan Mack, can you please tell us more about Anubis and about your work within that organization, as well as your work in self-defense?
Yes, Anubis, we started off as during Hurricane Harvey. So we got together, did a lot to help out a lot of people that was in communities that were underserved, definitely. Like, you had a lot of stuff going on the news where you showed people getting rescued and being brought materials and water and stuff too. And we went into communities that those things were not necessarily happening. And so we were running into a lot of elderly people that had been stuck in flooded houses alone by themselves. And so Anubis was basically formed in the midst of that storm to make a vow to, do whatever we can to protect our community in every way. And, it in that whole thing, we started gun training. We started teaching guys, a lot about self-defense and stuff like that. And we would have an open line, basically, like if anything is going on, if you're going through any type of situation, if you don't want to call the police, call us. It's a gutsy thing to do, and we take a lot of risks. But at the same time, our philosophy is, the risk is always worth it for the sake of our people, because somebody got to make the sacrifice.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. Brother Maitreya, I'm great, thank you. You are representing the Huey P. Newton Gun Club.
Houston chapter.
Yes, awesome. Can you please tell us more about that organization? Introduce yourself and tell us about that organization.
Oh, okay. Well, like you said, I go by the name of Brother Maitreya. I am the commander of the Huey P. Newton Gun Club, Houston chapter. The Huey P. Newton Gun Club was started in 2014 by a few individuals, Babu Omawali, Yafeo Balagoon, and people like that. Also, Rakim Balagoon as well. And it was basically started in 2014 after the killing of an unarmed black man in Dallas. A couple of guys decided to get together and exercise their Second Amendment rights, and in protest for the young brother who was slain. So, the club has been going strong ever since.
Awesome. Great to hear that. Great to hear that. So, back to you. Elaborate more about your passion for community self-defense, what you think that entails, and what you think is necessary to implement it.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna start with the last part of your question.
Okay.
The most important thing that we have to get to as a collective is a spiritual awareness. We have to get back to a spiritual understanding and awareness of ourselves. We have to know who we are spiritually. We have to know who we are as a people, where we come from, our history. We have to understand the self-defense aspect of it, or the community defense aspect of it, from a historical standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint. You take it back thousands of years, thousands and thousands of years, you're dealing with the first of civilization. You don't have the first of civilization. You got mamas and babies, you know, and your elderly around without a means to protect them. You know, you don't have it. The moment that you have life brought into the society, you have a means to protect that life force. Now, in this day and time, we struggle with the many different faces of our spirituality. But collectively, we understand us as the original people on the planet. One thing is for sure, that spirituality is definitely in our image. It comes from us. And millennia, or thousands of years ago, that was no question. That wasn't up for question. We knew who we are. We knew who ourselves were. We didn't have to fight to get to a spiritual understanding first. So the community defense, the need to protect my elder, the need to protect our own, or their own people, was clear cut. You didn't have to say, okay, well, we've so focused on equality and equal rights and, all lives matter, if you will, that we knew to put our people first. You got all nations of the land that put their people first, and that revolves around the spiritual aspect of things. That's taking it back to a whole nother spiritual level. Now, in dealing with your spirituality and your history, knowing where we come from, knowing that thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, we had self-defense or community national defense systems because of the fact that we had to preserve ourselves, our culture, in order for it to be carried on in today's time, brings you to this point now. You have a lot of brothers and sisters that are coming into what we call consciousness, a lot of people that have been there, and have the spiritual grounding and awareness to be able to bring that out in other people. Once you come to a spiritual awareness, once you have your spiritual guard up, because as we know, what's happening in the physical is happening in that spiritual world. Once you have your your spiritual guard up, then you're ready to deal with your mental defenses, your physical defenses. But if we don't know who we fighting for, we not really able to protect ourselves, no matter how good I can punch and kick, no matter how good my marksmanship is, no matter how fast or quick I am on the battlefield. If I don't have a solid understanding of who I'm fighting for, then it means nothing. And we're not even on the physical level. Before you get to the physical, your spiritual side, your ancestors, in African martial arts, you have a lot of reverence given to your ancestors. You call on your ancestors for your Ashe, your spiritual power. You call on your ancestors, period. As far as the spirituality being of utmost importance in your defense, when you have your spirituality intact, you have a good positive image of yourself, your history. Like I said, you're ready to work on a physical defense. Of course, we're not taking for granted our mental defense. We have to be mentally healthy. You got to be healthy in all realms of yourself and your being. When you have established good communal mental health, when we're putting and feeding our children's brains with the right mental food, the right things, and the right or the correct, accurate history of themselves. You know, you're giving them even more what we call ashe, spiritual power, and that alone develops an innate sense to want to protect yourself, to want to protect your sister, your brother, your children, your mothers and fathers. When we have a good mental health, we have that established, then we're ready to touch. Then we're ready to go physical. You know, a baby can defend themselves. A baby's first defense mechanism is scratching. You know, everybody has innate ability to physically fight, so to say. But like I said, it goes back to if you don't know who or what you're fighting for, you might as well be on the enemy's side. We have to know who we are, what we're fighting for, if we want to even talk about defense in a physical form. You know, self-defense in the physical form speak for itself. Being able to keep somebody off of you, being able to keep somebody off of somebody else. You know, and we have to be able to do that in a community, in our nation, in our families. It starts with yourself and your home. You know, if your home is in shambles and you're not able to protect your daughters or whoever it is in your living arrangement or what, your home, you're not ready to protect the community. We have to keep our homes together, straight and strong. Then we move to the community. Once we have our homes in the community straight and at a satisfactory point, then we move on to our nation, where we get the term nation building, And then not only our nation, but when we get our nation intact, then we might be able to give a little aid to other nations in struggle. But like I said, we should not take any shame in taking care and tending to our people and our nation in needs first.
Awesome.
Can dig it.
Yes, awesome answer. So please tell me about your passion for community self-defense. What do you think it entails, and what is needed to implement it?
I think that, Anubis, we kind of known as the dudes that carry the big guns. We come out and do like a lot of community stuff. You got guys with guns swinging from the shoulders, down to their ankles and stuff like that. So that to me is like the most minuscule, like smallest part of it. Mm-hmm. The most important part of community defense is to want to defend the community and creating an environment, a community of people who want to defend their community. And so for me, it goes back to just on a fathers and mothers being present and aware of the type of children that we're raising. Because, a lot of us, we came up doing a lot of destructive stuff. I'm from the hood, like a lot of other of my people that, I'm around and I'm friends with and cool with. And so we all kind of live like this, almost like the same storyline. Like we got dreams and visions when we 7 and 8 years old. And then, you get 13, 14, that turned into, I don't really know what I'm going to do. But, if it's some money to be made right now, you might start hustling, or you might just be kind of going through school just to pass and stuff like that. And so either way it go, community is not like something you thinking about during those times where you growing to be, who you're going to become. And so for me, community defense starts with teaching our children to care about our community and to see themselves as a community, and not to ever see themselves as expendable or, that they don't matter, or that their future and everything they're doing is not important. It's important for you to go to school and be a doctor or be whatever you need to be for the sake of community, not for the sake of capitalism and just to make money for this society, but for the sake of doing something positive and being able to acquire skills that you can use to benefit the community. So that's what it's about for me, is teaching our children not to fall into those destructive behaviors that lead down that school to prison pipeline, that lead into, not having skills that can benefit the community. and stuff like that. And then on a personal level, like I feel like defense for the community is about you always being present and aware wherever you are and being ready to defend at any moment's time when anything come up. And that's when, you know, you get into all that, like, people feel like, you know, in our community, we say you got to mind your business, you know. That's important to us. And I think that that's kind of, that hasn't been very positive or worked out like well for us in a lot of ways, because there's a difference between being nosy and getting in somebody's business as opposed to protecting the community. If I got a certain issue, if I got a certain issue, it should be normal for me to like say, hey, you know, I'm a violent person, you know, with the people that are around me. I need to get some help. It should be some brothers, sisters there that help you to not be that type of person. And so what we do is we just see these people with issues and it's just, oh, you know, that's what they dealing with. That's that. So just preventative measures as far as like what, you know, the brother was saying here, mental health and stuff like that, to form healthier people, mentally and physically healthier people that have an idea of a sense of community. And like I said, just in your daily walk every day, don't let an opportunity miss you to defend your community. You know, it's my life is kind of annoying sometimes because no matter where I'm going, if I got 16 hours to drive for work, if I see a black person pulled over on the side of the road, I'm pulling over. Hey, what's going on? You good? Yeah, no matter, you know, what it is, I'm gonna stay with them, make sure they good, however that looks. So it's times where we need to be, that's where the whole like being tough guys come in at, because we got to be able to protect each other. So if we are in trouble, you need guys like us, women like yourself, that can come in and say, hey, this ain't, you know, this ain't whatever, whoever got something going on or trying to come in, and that ain't gonna work. Like, you know, we got to hold each other down. So that's why we have to make ourselves warriors in that sense, warriors mentally and physically, to be able to defend ourselves at any given time, and not just because, you know, we have organizations. Each one of us is involved in an organization, but you know, the organization is not going to always be there when something comes up. You know what I'm saying? And when you see these things happening, then you got to step up. And you know, me personally, I'm not with that. If I see a cop beating up a sister, I'm not finna be with the phone, hey, stop doing that. It is what it is. Like, it's going down. You know what I'm saying? Life, because it's worth it. It's the fight is well worth it, because that's what we train for. That's what we here for. And sometimes there is a sacrifice involved. And like I said, that when you, whatever you do for the love of your people and defense of your people, to me is always worth it. And we wouldn't be here if the ancestors hadn't done it for us.
Ashe. All right. You as well. Can you please tell us about your passion for community self-defense, what you think it entails, and what you think is necessary to implement it?
Okay, yeah, I absolutely can. My passion for community self-defense goes back many, many years. Quite some time. I've been studying martial arts ever since I was a young child. I've been training with all sorts of different people. Pretty much started with my uncle when I was a young child. He was a kickboxing and karate champion. He's a 4th degree black belt, and I really started a lot of my training with him. And just throughout the years, I've always been around in the neighborhood. I've always been working with people in martial arts. These days, I'm doing a little bit of, I train a lot in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA style martial arts. The Huey P. Newton Gun Club, we do consist of that MMA style boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and also weapons training and gun safety and stuff like that as well. And as far as training the community, I felt that it's important for our community to know how to defend themselves. Everything in nature has a defense mechanism, and we are definitely at a point of time in our existence where we are going to have to learn and understand how to defend ourselves, because these are some very volatile and hostile times that we're living in. And I make that an important, that's an important aspect of life that I teach to, and particularly the youth, because we're passing the mantle down to them. So we want to make sure that they're trained up, that they know how to defend themselves, that they know how to operate, own and operate firearms, know how to, properly break it down, clean it, put it back together, how to, undo jams and stuff like that, and how to defend themselves in the case of any type of situation, any type of threatening situation, life-threatening situation. We believe in all men, women, children, all need to be trained in not only martial arts, but survival tactics and gun safety as well. You have other people who are training their kids to shoot weapons. I've seen kids as young as 5, 6, 7 years old. They shooting weapons. There's, little girls with blindfolds breaking down AR-15s and putting them back together. So there's no reason why our kids shouldn't be trained in weapons use and martial arts as well.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Great to hear. So, as you said, a lot of people are becoming conscious now. There's more movement in the Black community for Black activists. Do you feel like we are doing a better job with community self-defense now because of that? Do you feel like we have done better in the past? Are there leaders that you look to, either past or present, that you feel presented a good sustainable idea of community self-defense?
Yes. Well, answer your question like this. I feel like definitely in the past, we've exercised self-defense and defense for our community a little better. Yeah. Honestly, just because of the fact that 60 years ago, the threat was a little more blatant than it is now. Even take it back 160 years, that threat was like very blatant.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna use one of the heroines, for example, Aramente, who most people know as Harriet Tubman. Extreme martial artist, master of disguise. We know her to have freed hundreds of slaves. Those type of energies, wasn't the only sister. I'll go with another sister, Ya Santiwa, out of Ghana. One of the only in that period where she went into the death house, the only one to survive. Another sister that had brought an awareness to that community to defend themselves. Going up a little bit more in times, you have your Black Panthers, and even before the Panther Party, you have a slew of organizations that were not afraid to fight back. A lot of the times we don't have our spiritual energy enough. We're not spiritually strong enough to fight back. And the further back you go, the more intact our spirituality was. Now, we say that a lot more people are coming into consciousness, a spiritual awareness. It's taking some time, but we're getting there. You have a lot of brothers and sisters out there right now that are putting forth great effort into not only developing the spiritual awareness in our people, but the mental awareness, physical awareness that they need to be able to defend themselves. However, the further we go back in time, you'd see a more spiritual connection. Everything that we do is done through whether we know it or not or acknowledge it or not, through the workings of our ancestors. I go back to your ancestral reverence a lot because of the fact that that is who you are. You're an ancestor that has come back and been rebirthed, if you will. We all are. And the drive to protect ourselves has to come from that standpoint. It has to come from that standpoint. To be a little bit more direct or to go a little bit more into your question, I'm not saying that the brothers and sisters out there today aren't doing a good job. I think everybody's doing a great job as far as the communities here in Houston now, in abroad in, Detroit. I give a shout out to brothers and sisters in Detroit, all over the United States. We're doing a really good job of strengthening those communities, bringing back an awareness of self, we're doing a very good job. I do think that in the past, we've had a stronger sense of actually getting out of that situation. It was more of a direct need to get out of that blatant situation. Now, you got a lot of people that are kind of getting used to it, They're going with the times, So it's just the need to fight back, isn't so... I'm not gonna say present. It's always present, but it's not understood. You got a lot of people, like I said, just getting used to it. A lot of people getting used to it. In the slavery times or the era, it was a blatant need to fight. Now the blatant need to fight, it's there. We see it. A few of us can see it, rather, but the masses don't see it. They don't see it. They don't see a problem with the situation. They think, America is the greatest place you can be here on earth right now.
Yeah, I don't think it's so blatant with everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Right now it's definitely not. It's not blatant. We have to get that back to a blatant issue. We have to know that even though the physical chains are off, the mental and spiritual chains are stronger and tighter than ever. Goes back to my premise. We have to become aware spiritually. Awareness in self-defense is probably one of your, if not the most important component. But it's not all about the physical awareness. We have to be spiritually aware. We got to break those chains spiritually. And right now, our spiritual state is really, really jacked up, which, it can be corrected. And it is being corrected as we speak.
Awesome. Same question to you.
You remember that movie, I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker? You ever seen that? It was one part when Keenan Ivory Wayne's character went to like this guy, some Kalinga, and he was supposed to be like this big time revolutionary. And he was like, man, come on, come help me take down the man. Like, let's start you once led the biggest revolutionary army, in the city. And he said, yeah, we went down to the office building to take it over, but they was hiring that day. The brothers came in with guns, but they left with jobs. So that's kind of like, I feel like where we at is that whole illusion of inclusion is that we are a little comfortable now, a little bit more comfortable than the images that we've been seeing. If you show us images of people with scars on their back that had to work from sun up to sundown and had to go back and sleep in a little cot every day, then, our lives are we see our lives as a little bit better because, we don't get whooped at work. We just gotta make sure that, make sure we use our white voice and not offend too many of our coworkers with our blackness and stuff like that. And so we get to go home and live, whether we live in the hood or, some upper or lower class, middle class neighborhood, or drive a decent car. But the issue with that is, and it goes back to capitalism, which doesn't and hasn't worked for us and as a system. Because one thing I say all the time, especially in my industry in the oil and gas, is that we don't get paid for what we do. We get paid for the time we spend there. So if the job that I'm performing is basically in the oil and gas and energy field, meaning that if people who had my job title and skill set didn't show up to do this job, then this world would be literally dark. We wouldn't have no planes flying. We wouldn't have no cars on the streets. You know what I mean? None of that. So for us to take a little paycheck, not get any type of residual income, and at the end of the day, they'll tell you like these machines that we work on are gonna make this company $100 million a week. And so if this machine is making this company $100 million a week, the people that are pushing papers, the 1%, their kids are gonna live off generational wealth from the work that we put in. And so for us, like I said, we don't see ourselves as slaves anymore, because instead of walking back barefooted to that cot, we able to drive back in our Escalade to our house, but we still only working just to be able to afford to work. And at the end of the day, all of our efforts, our life energy is being put into just making sure the wealthy stay wealthy, the 1% maintain their way of life. And so that's what to me, the biggest issue in getting our people to wake up to is that we may be comfortable in some ways, but we're not free, because no matter how much money we get in this system, we're still colonized all over the world. Wherever we are globally, we still colonized. We colonized here, we colonized in Africa, we colonized in South America. No matter where we are, like, and I go to work in Africa, and so a lot of people don't see that there's guys out there that are engineers, and here engineers, they make good money. Those guys, I got friends that's engineers in Africa that make, if you know anything about being an engineer, these guys probably make about $2,000 to $3,000 a month, which is nothing. And so what's going on is slave labor is being used over there to funnel money, being used to make money for these giant corporations that are owned by the U.S. and Europe, and that the wealth of what those guys are providing, those engineers and welders and boilermakers and pipe fitters, the wealth that they're providing is going towards European and American families. And as a people, we're not seeing that wealth. So I think that we got to realize that, like, stop taking these little trinkets, because at the end of the day, we're dealing with extremists, and we keep trying to figure out a modest way to deal with extremists. And there's people that there's a guy that's going to wake up Monday morning, and his job is, as a scientist, is to go into a lab and figure out how to make bombs that kill whole cities of people but don't destroy buildings. And these people do this without emotion. Like they go to work and they think about ways like, how do we maintain power? Like, you know what I mean? Like look at the development of weaponry since when, we just had spears and rocks and stuff like that. Now we got jets that, can break the sound barrier and stuff like that. You can send out drones. You don't even have to be in that country to destroy that country. Mm-hmm. That's how much the world has advanced technologically in weaponry. So these people, that's what their mind state is. It's not a moderate mind state about, live and let live. Their mind state is conquer and control. And as long as they're conquering and they're in control, then we good. Like, everybody's, let's enjoy the music, go get you a plate of barbecue. But if you start asking them, hey, we need y'all own the house, y'all own the ranch, y'all own the cows. We need that. We need to own hey, now, come on now. Hey, come on.
We need y'all owning now.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Hey, calm down, buddy. What we gonna do? You need an extra scrabble ribs? Get this man some more ribs.
And most people will settle for that too.
So
take that extra slab of ribs.
And that's what's going on now. It's like we saying we rise up, and I hate that this whole conscious thing, like, because there's a lot of fads, and fads are cool because sometimes they lead to bigger things. Like, there was a kung fu fad back when Bruce Lee movies was really popular. You know, you had dudes walking, had black dudes walking around with their hair perm, like like Bruce Lee, and with like the brother can tell you here, and way more intelligently than I can, as far as martial arts, coming from us and our ancestry. But a lot of us didn't see it until they saw Bruce Lee, and then like I said, dudes started wearing the little thin pants and the little shoes. I wore them, so I ain't gonna lie. You know what I mean? But like, and that fad turned into karate schools all across the country and the world, really. So that fad materialized into something that really gave a lot of people wealth and still providing wealth today when you talk about action movies and stuff like that. So I wish the conscious community, I wish this fad would turn more into action, as far as like really being about what we're talking about and not just something cool to talk about on social media. You know what I mean? Like now, woke is like just having the cool pair of jeans now. Like you know what I mean? It's like the cross colors of our days, a Tommy Hill figure. Like, oh, you woke, man, you good, you cool, you in. But being revolutionaries, because revolution is always the answer. Revolution is always the answer, because this system is beyond being fixed by like the system. Like the system is designed to marginalize and oppress. And if you care about the fate of humanity, then you have to know that revolution is a must, because we have to change. And it's not about hating people, or like people think because we carry around guns and we talk about self-defense in a certain way and we talk tough, that we just some meatheads that's like, oh man, we just ready to go out here and beat somebody up. Like if we like the whole sex trafficking thing, like we got plans to deal with that in a certain type of way. So it's like, I know a lot of people are thinking like, we need to find these guys and beat them up and this and that, which I'm cool with that. But it's more so about just having the awareness that we can live in a better world where people don't have to be oppressed, and to believe that and accept that as reality, that we really can make a change. We really can live in a world where single mothers don't have to get up every day to go to a job to barely be able to take care of children, and when they a lot of times still need to be at home with their children to better serve their health and the child's health. To like, what I mean, just everything is basically get the work, feed this Fortune 500 company. And so I just think that we need to really believe that and take that to heart, that we can live in a world where we are actually okay with how we're treating each other, and instead of like this. But it requires work. So just trying to get people on board to do the work is a whole nother thing. Like, yeah, like you were saying, like people are waking up, and and a lot of them are waking up to some whole other stuff. Some people think that waking up is saying the earth is flat. You understand me? so and I don't believe it, but even if it is, it's still capitalism and oppression on it. So we can.
Does it make much of a difference?
We can get to that later. Like, let's get free, and then we gonna go try to find the edge. But so we need to wake up to action and actually getting out doing something, and not just waking up to, hey, I know, because knowledge, like they say, knowledge is power, but knowledge, the application of knowledge is power.
Awesome. Yeah, just a short rebuttal to what you said. It's very funny to me that conscious people, like you said, are waking up to different things. And so they're asking, like a lot of I don't want to say that they're irrelevant questions, but questions that do nothing for our
Right.
state right now, the oppression that we face daily.
Yeah.
Like, did dinosaurs really exist? Like, is the earth flat? And so those questions, while they may be worth studying eventually, like he was saying, like we have to deal with the here and now.
Right.
We have to get ourselves together in order to be able to defend ourselves, whether dinosaurs existed, whether the earth is flat. Like we have to get ourselves back right. Like again, as he mentioned, we know the ancestors existed.
Right.
We
We
know
know
that
that.
we exist now, and that we are facing capitalism, white terrorism, also known as white supremacy, but there's nothing supreme about it,
Right.
and consistent oppression on a daily basis, and we must and we have to deal with that immediately. My apologies, Maitreya, on to you. Same question to you. Basically, do you feel like we're as we are awaking, doing the whole conscious Black Lives Matter, are we doing a better job with community self-defense? Who do you look to, either past or present, that you feel facilitated a sustainable community self-defense program or just frame?
Pretty much as far as, to answer your first question, as far as do you feel that we are doing a good job, so to speak, or sustainable job in community martial arts, I do believe that we are doing a better job. I would like to think that if not a better job than the original parties, like the original Panthers and stuff like that, I would like to think that we are continuing the legacy, whether we're doing a better job or not. I do believe that the legacy, as far as the physical training and martial arts training and stuff like that, is still there and is still very relevant. We definitely stayed in the community. We train a lot of kids, and we train a lot of women as well. That's very important, especially dealing with all of these, like the brother was mentioning earlier, the sex trafficking and stuff like that. So we definitely feel that it's very important to do that. And as far as who I look to, I would have to bring it back as far as who I look up to as far as community training, I would have to bring it back to my uncle. My uncle RD, he is, he was one of my original heroes. He was like the Black Superman to me. And he was in the neighborhoods in Danville, Virginia, and he had a martial arts school, kickboxing, karate school, where he would train all the neighborhood kids would come and train under my uncle. So that's pretty much where my love for martial arts originated, so yeah. But definitely I feel that we are doing, I think that I wouldn't necessarily say that we're doing a better or worse job than our predecessors, who were here before us, training the community and stuff like that. But I do feel that we are at least continuing the legacy. I'm starting to see more and more videos of comrades training, and they're training men and women and children. They're going to the gun range. They're doing different maneuvers. They're doing different tactics, clearing the room, and shooting while moving. Just different tactics and stuff that I see is going on. So I think that, as a matter of fact, I think that we are doing a better job as far as guns, just because our weaponry is more advanced now. You look at some of the old videos of the old Panthers, they got, some of them old long rifles, with, no scope, no nothing, with an elephant gun, with the double barrel. No, I'm not, you know, but they had what they used. They had what they needed at the time and what was available at the time. You know, but they definitely wasn't dealing with no high power AR-15s and AK-47s and stuff like that. You know, which is what we're dealing with now. So as far as firearms, we definitely are doing better. As far as firearms, because we're just more advanced now. It's, you know, it's as simple as that.
Yes.
You know, so yeah.
Awesome. I believe Mack touched on it earlier, but do you think that social media, especially the videotaping of the brutalizing of Black people by not only police but non-POCs, do you think that that being portrayed so widely on social media has had an impact on people getting more into community self-defense?
Yes, I think it's had an impact on people getting more involved, and at the same time, it for a lot of us it numbs you to that type of stuff as well. You know, so it kind of has that double-edged blade to it. You know, it'll definitely get you aware. Excuse me, it'll definitely get you aware, but the more and more we see that stuff and not being able to act on it, not being willing to act on it. You know, because you can see it all you want, but a lot of people aren't going to step in and actually help deal with that situation, you know? So it kind of just nullifies our mental state even more. For, I'm going to use a man, for example, for a Black man to see his Black woman getting brutalized and to not be able to do anything about it. It definitely reinstitutes the fact that you're in slavery, because 100 years ago, 150 years ago, you're dealing with the same thing. It's the same exact thing. You got a handful of people back then that would have stepped up and, no, we're not going to let that happen. Today's, in this time as well, you know, you got a handful of people that's going to actually step up and actively do something about that. But in short, that's a double-edged sword. It'll definitely bring the awareness or the consciousness. It makes people know about it, but it doesn't always make people act on it. You know, people don't really tend to act on it till it's happening to themselves or maybe a loved one.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
I think we need to respond the same way every time, like we did pretty much when Rodney King happened. Like, you know, y'all ever have a friend that this is a friend that kind of, you know, you just can't say anything to him. Not that you're scared of him or something like that, but you know, if you don't talk to him a certain way, or if you do, like, it'll be more of something you don't really wanna go there with them. Not like they'll hurt you or anything like that, but they just got such a strong personality that it's like, you know, okay, like whatever you say, I got, like, we need to be that friend. In general, like, because every
Not
time,
many of us.
yeah, every time that they do something, they need to know, like, if you cough wrong, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that would really, like, kind of keep a lot of stuff down, because even though at the end of the day, after the riots, after Rodney King, we really didn't get anything tangible, but them folks was on TV the next week talking about, hey, y'all stop all that. We got some jobs for you. We got jobs. We got basketball courts. You understand me? So, like, they will actually, they pay attention to that, and it's unfortunate because there's always that person that only get it when you check them. Like, you can tell them, hey, listen, I really don't like being talked to like that. Could we just kind of, and as soon as that line and you come out, then it's like, oh, okay, cool. You didn't have to do all that. Actually, I did have to do all that.
Clearly.
Yeah, and we have to continue to do all of that until you know, a certain folks are wiped out of existence. We're just gonna have to keep dealing with them. We're gonna have to keep fighting. We're gonna have to keep, like, you know, to piggyback off of what my brother said. Like, after the Rodney King incident, we were so united at that time. So much ass was being whooped. We made a statement, and the media do not like to talk about it, but there was a lot of people who bit the dust.
Yeah.
Because of that situation, but this is something that the media like to sweep under the rug
Yeah.
because they don't want people to know that these Negroes actually came out here and was killing people. It was just a Reginald Denny thing, when he got snatched out.
Denny.
Yeah, he got snatched out of the truck.
That was a beautiful moment.
Yeah, it was I loved it. I'm not gonna even sit there and lie to you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there was a lot of people that got a lot worse that they sweep under the rug. But the point that I'm making with that is it has to come to that.
Yeah.
It has to come to that because we are at a point of survival right now.
Yeah.
And if we don't defend ourselves, then they're basically just going to try to wipe us out of existence. They're already doing it now with gentrification. They're doing it now with the school to prison pipeline. They're doing it. It's a war waged against us to keep the Negro in line, you know what I'm saying, to keep us in check because of the racial pyramid scheme that this country is ran off of. You keep the Negroes at the top. You keep them, give some of them jobs so they can keep the American economy going. They already built the American economy, but we have to keep them down. We can't give them nothing. We can't let them build too much because then they're going to take their natural position as leaders, and then we're going to be pushed at the bottom. And that's what they see is happening now. They're at a negative birth rate, things of that nature, and they're very scared right now of what we have planned, and what we have brewing. And I'm not trying to get to conspiracy theories and stuff like that, but we are, like I said, there's everything in nature has a defense mechanism, and we always, and particularly the Huey P. Newton Gun Club, we are always pushing for self-defense. Now that doesn't mean going out and grabbing a gun and just killing somebody for no reason. That's not what we're saying. But what we are saying is that there's a war going on outside, and you better be ready to defend yourself at any cost. And that's what what the Huey P. Newton Gun Club is all about.
Yeah. And as far as violence, they're good at making violence out of a pristine, like they make violence like this pretty girl for them. Like, oh, look at her.
It's a Hollywood movie.
Her hair is perfect. She's the girl next door, because they celebrate their soldiers in a certain way. And it's always like, these are our best. They celebrate their police officers. They celebrate every form of state facilitated violence against us. They celebrate it. And what they do with us is, when they talk about violence, when it's concerned us, now it's some chick with, she busted up her she got half a heel on one foot, and you know what I'm saying? And hey, listen, just stay away from her. You don't want to deal with her. But so I embrace violence. I embrace violence not because I think overall it's a good thing for humanity, but because of the world we live in. That's something that we gotta realistically deal with and accept that we are not dealing with forces that see violence as like they see violence as something. I'll put it like this: they don't even believe in a world that can exist without people being conquered. If you talk to these people, their mentality is somebody has to be conquered. And obviously they're not gonna say it's gonna be us. So you know what I mean?
Right.
So their whole way of looking at things, like they can't even envision a world where nobody has to be conquered. Like everybody can just chill. You know what I'm saying? Like there's enough, and I looked up the statistics. If every single human being there's enough resources on earth for every single living human being to live a upper middle, like a United States version of an upper middle class lifestyle. There's enough, there's enough like resources for everybody to basically, every single human being to basically make $77,000 a year, live like they make American standard $77,000 a year. So with that said, I think that as human beings, we should be smart enough now to figure out how to live on this earth without having to kill each other and beat each other up over whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, so the fact that we're still living in that way, I think that people gonna look back, 1,000 years from now when we actually do get smart and say like, man, like, how was people living in such savagery? Like we actually almost like they are in the Stone Age based on the level of intelligence that we have and the technology that we have. We still as people like are behaving like we in the Stone Ages.
Awesome.
And if I may to give a quick conclusion and solution to your previous question, we need repercussions and consequences.
Right.
To be dealt with. Clandestinely, of course. Quick example, the Islamic Nation is wonderful for it and acting about it. It was a couple of years back, a TV production company aired a show that made a joke about Islam, whatever have you. Within 2 days of that show being aired, that TV station was blown up. Those headquarters were blown up.
Oh.
Repercussions, and they didn't do that again.
Yeah.
Consequences and repercussions.
Consequences and repercussions. Period.
Lessons learned in blood are not soon forgotten. But to go back, I appreciate the fact that you brought up spirituality. People don't understand the difference between spirituality and religion, and we have been taught, or better yet, oppressed to believe that religion has something to do with spirituality, which I beg to differ. And I spoke about it on a past show about how we were given, like you said, a moral compass that nobody else is following. So whereas now the threat is not so blatant. In the past, when slavery was a thing, like I said, murder was an option. Like these people are literally enslaving you, beating you, working you, raping you. Like that's literally okay to do. And you were given this Bible and this white Jesus and told that your gifts would lie in heaven once you died, after we rape your wife and your daughter and work you for years and years and years. And so it's like, I still feel like that's an issue today. And I'd love to see Black people getting back to spirituality and away from religion, where they have been pacified for so long, and on their knees instead of on their feet. And so I love that you spoke on that, on the ancestors and spirituality, and getting back to that and getting back to who you truly are, so that you can better defend yourself, your family, your community, your nation.
Yeah.
Right.
So thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Thank you to you, Baba Shango, Jonathan Mack.
Big Mac.
Brother Maitreya. I really appreciate you guys for coming out. This has been Green Watch Live. I am Treasure Mitchell, and in the words of Dr. Khalil Muhammad, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Please watch your government, because the government is watching you. Good night.
With power, here they come, international loan sharks, backed by the guns of market-hungry military profiteers, whose word is a swamp and whose brow is smeared with the blood of the poor. Who rob life of its quality